fashion Friday, thumping Hernando 42-21 on the road. And Coach, it's always good to get a road win. Always good to get that first division win.
It's very good to get the first division win, to come out and kind of set yourself up for, for success down the road. Because in this division, if you don't win them, you get yourself, you can be out of the playoffs in a hurry.
I thought that was probably one of the best first quarters we played this year, offensively speaking.
We played very well. I was happy offensively and defensively in the first quarter. As a coach, you fall back and question, because our games had been so tight and we trailed and come back and done all those things. You hope that we get better at handling success than where we are. But, that's a little bit of a mark of maybe not, I guess in some aspects a young team or a team that hasn't played a whole lot of football, where you start scoreboard watching and not finish the deal.
Jumped out to a 28-0 lead. They kind of got back into it a little bit, 28-14, and then we finished strong in the second half. What did you tell your guys after the game?
Well, really, we just talked about that we have to be a team that when we get out in front, we have to finish. You have to finish. You get somebody down, you got to go ahead and finish the deal. And end the ball game. Right. If you can score there, you want to do it. We talked a lot about the fact that when you watch Alabama play, if they play a 1AA opponent, they don't mess around to the fourth quarter. They go ahead and win the ball game in the first 8 minutes, and then they're able to sit back. And I said that's where we've got to be if we want to be a good football team.
It was the Ware to Wilson show early on. Those two just seemed to be on the same page the entire ball game.
They had a really good night. They were giving us some things, and our staff did a good job of calling them, putting them in the right play, and he did a good job of reading it. Jake did, and then Tripp. What else can you say about him? He's so physical. Once he catches the football, he's not one of those guys that runs away from contact. He runs to it.
Well, in fact, his first touchdown, he plowed over a guy pretty good at about the 5 or 6 yard line,
and he did. And that was a little RPO that was called, and Jake was able to see that what the outside backer did and got the ball to Tripp, and then he did the rest.
Jacoby, another good game as well.
Yeah, we've had good games from several people, and one thing that you got to talk about is Jake punting the ball. Right. Punted one 51-yarder that we were able to down on the one, so that was really good.
We talk a lot about offense, but defensively we had a lot of sacks, particularly in the first half, and I thought Pinson really had a great first half.
Charles Pinson had a really good game. A kid that plays the game under the radar, Justin Wilson, had a really good game. Adam Miller quietly had a very good game at corner over there, batted several balls down. So I was really pleased with those guys. Of course, there's mistakes. That the bad thing as a coach, you sit back there and you kind of look at the mistakes, and it kind of eats at you more than the good plays. And you kind of have to temper that a little bit when you're talking. When you're trying to relive the game to your players and stuff, because you want to correct those mistakes. But those are going to happen. But I was pleased with how we did.
Well, on the field after the game, you even told that to your players. You talked about, hey, it's a great win, but we can still get better.
Yeah, that's the thing. We want to get better. We want to continually get better each week. And this coming week, if we don't play well, this one could be a tough one. Talent-wise, this may be the best team we've seen, just by who they've got on the field at any one time.
Of course, we're talking about Olive Branch. After what seems like 5 months away, we finally get a home game. And they're all division games. They're all big now, and they're all going to be tough. But kind of break down a little bit what you've seen on Olive Branch and what has been the key for them so far.
Olive Branch defensively is really, really good. They've got 3 kids that are Division I scholarship athletes over there defensively. They've got really good length at the defensive back spot. And they come after you, and that's the thing. They play hard, and you start watching them on film. They don't give up any yards to somebody. So it's going to be a game where you have to work at it. We'll have to do what I saw a sign on Tulane's walls this summer when I was there that said the wave doesn't beat the wave. We'll have to do some things and be sharp so that we don't beat ourselves.
I like that. The wave can't beat the wave. That makes a lot of sense. Right. It seems like every week we talk about the opposing team's defense, and you talking about all the D1 players. My goodness, we could put a an all-star team together of D1 players, it feels like.
I think if you watched the press conference today, you'd have seen a whole bunch of guys that are, that are on our schedule or that we've played, some from West Point and Panola and Oxford and Horn Lake and Olive Branch. Those teams were loaded, with guys that are going to play in all-star games in December.
Talking about all-star games, big day for us. As a football team, we had 3 players, Jacoby and Hayes and Tripp.
Yeah, Jacob Hayes and Tripp. Jacob and Hayes, they were both picked to play in the Mississippi-Alabama game, which is, it's a tough thing to do. I've been fortunate to coach both those games. And, you're only allowed to pick 40 out of the senior class in Mississippi, and so the Miss Al game is thought to be the top 40 players in the state. So we had 2 of those, and then Tripp Wilson made the Bernard Blackwell, which is the north-south game. He was able to be chosen as a receiver on that, so I'm really proud for those guys.
Like you said, 3 players coach in the All-Star games. When are these games?
The Mississippi-Alabama game will be played December 14th in Hattiesburg.
And it rotates every year?
It rotates between Hattiesburg and Montgomery.
Right.
For years it was played in Alabama all the time, and I believe 6 years ago was the first time that it made its appearance in Mississippi, and we haven't lost a game that's played in Mississippi. Mississippi's won the last 2. But it'll be played on the 14th in Hattiesburg.
Okay.
Kids will go down, spend the entire week down there, and be coached up and taken care of like kings. And then the Bernard Blackwell will play the following week in Gulfport, and it'll be played on December 21st at Gulfport High School.
And it's a traditional Mississippi All-Star
It is
game.
a Mississippi game, and this is 70-something years, 77th year or something like that, 71st. It's I heard it earlier this morning. So that game's been played a long time here in Mississippi, and it's a very prestigious thing. They talked about today that, for kids that don't get selected, in the Miss Al, don't think this game's not played with a bunch. The hottest name in the NFL right now is Garner Minshew,
right.
And he was the quarterback for the South team in the Bernard Blackwell years ago. So it'll be fun for our kids, and it's a great honor. I'm always proud for them to get to go do those things.
Absolutely. Is this also kind of a last chance for the college coaches to see these kids?
All right. It's kind of tricky with all-star games, like Division I guys aren't allowed to be there and watch, and that kind of deal. And then community college guys aren't allowed to be at the game. They be at practice, so they will surround the field with guys. And so, especially you get into Bernard Blackwell, you may have a kid that's a great football player that doesn't have an offer, that wants to keep playing football. Well, every practice he does twice a day, he'll be surrounded by every community college coach, standing there watching, and a lot of kids wind up coming out of these with offers.
Outstanding. Of course, we got Olive Branch this week, homecoming next week. So that's always a fun week. Do you have to be careful with the distractions when you get to homecoming week, like all the dress-up days? You got a parade. There's a lot outside of the game itself that you have to deal with.
Well, as coaches, you worry about that. You hate anything that's outside the routine.
Right.
You want everything to be the same routine, the same day every time, and so you worry about that with homecoming.
Well, we had Maury last week, a good win. Got another big game. We expect a full crowd again this week, and like last week, we had a great crowd at Hernando. Coach, congrats on the 1-0 start, and we look forward to be 2-0. For Coach Hammond, I'm Greg Ellis. This is Gridiron Takes.